Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of Allegheny County Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Jared, please take roll.
Ms. Bennett.
Here.
Mr. Bekowski.
Here.
Mr. DeMarco.
Here.
Mr. Dewar.
Here.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Here.
Mr. Fatulis.
Here.
Ms. Hallam.
Here.
Mr. Klein.
Here.
Mr. Macy.
Here.
Ms. Nacarati-Chapkus.
Here.
Mr. Palmieri.
Here.
Mr. Paul Messina.
Here.
Ms. Pritzio.
Here.
Mr. Walton.
Here.
President Katina.
Here.
All 15 members are present.
We'll begin with the Chief Executive's quarterly address. Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. Good to be with you again as we begin spring. And as you may know, and you were part of, there's some changes in the administration. One of which we have a new county manager, but we also tonight are going to be honoring the former, he's not old, former county manager.
How old is he?
Former county manager. The old county executive, but the former county manager. And we're glad to have him here. And obviously, Jennifer Liptak, who you've known and got to work with as chief of staff, now will be as county manager, working with deputy manager Steve Pilarski, doing that job. But there's also been a couple of other changes that have occurred. As Dr. Deborah Bogan, the former health department director, is now Secretary Bogan, tapped by Governor Shapiro to lead the State Department of Health. And also former member of DHS, Dr. Latika Davis-Jones, has also been tapped by Governor Wolf to be the Secretary of Drug and Alcohol Programs. So I'm assuming there may be a few more changes in my final 9 months, but we're going to do everything we can to keep moving forward in a good way. One of the other things that has happened in that time is we have 2 new members of the election board. I want to congratulate Councilman Dorr and former Councilwoman Kirk. Former, you notice I didn't use that word that I described, who will be doing the elections. And we obviously had a special election back in February 7th. And again, this election department did a great job, and I'm proud of the work that they continue to do. There's been many changes, obviously, in state government as well, and I was glad to be in Harrisburg, both for the swearing in of the new legislative session back in early January, and then a few weeks later, the swearing in of Governor Shapiro and former member of this administration, Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis, and then was also proud to be there for the budget address a couple of weeks ago. Back to the elections, though, I was also very proud of the fact that Allegheny County was recognized and were invited by President Biden to participate in the January 6th. He was giving out a number of citations. Not that we got one, but others did. And I was glad to be there for Secretary of State Al Schmidt was there given a citation by the president at the White House, and was proud to represent the election department for the great work that they did on that process. This is going to be a different election in many ways, and I just got the number that there will be over 1,300 ballots that will be printed. So that is obviously a very big challenge as we go through municipal, school district, and local elections that bring a lot of, again, an awful lot different than we have during a presidential or a gubernatorial year with many ballots. And I'm sure, again, that the election department will be up to the challenge, and our 2 new board members will be helpful along those lines. continuing on with the Department of Health, we named Patrick Dowd, who was Deputy Director, now named Acting Director of the Department of Health, moving things along in a good, positive way. They released the 2023-2027, the next four-year plan, for the Healthier Allegheny. Recently launched a hydrogen sulfide dashboard, worked with the immunization clinic partners with MyChart for some scheduling on the online option, and then stipulated additional penalties for USX for the second quarter of 2022. We're also proud of the fact that the Health Department, for the third year in a row, will be listed, that Allegheny County will be listed in attainment. We were made attainment 3 years ago for the very first time in the history at all 8 monitors in Allegheny County, and then did it again last year, 2 years ago, and now have done it again for the third year in a row. And I think that's something that we can all be very, very proud of, that the partners who came together, including our health department, dealing with the all the industry partners that we have, making that work. And as we've grown the economy over the last 12 years, I'm one of the proudest I am of that we have reduced hazardous air pollution by 80% over the last 12 years. And again, something I think we've got additional work to do, but something I think we can be very, very proud of the work that we continue to do. Moving on to human services, we began the discounted fares program, the pilot program that Director Dalton and her team put into place. The application period closed in February, and we had over 14,000 individuals who become enrolled, including 5,000 children ages 6 to 17 who will be able to avail themselves to the PRT, Pittsburgh Regional Transit options, and another 5,000 people who did apply but quite frankly weren't eligible under the SNAP program that was put into place. Human Services also put a $50 million commitment to deal with violence reduction initiatives that are moving forward. And again, Director Dalton and her team are working very hard dealing with that obviously very challenging issue that plagues not just our region, but the country as a whole. We also have new incentives that were put in place for landlords renting to individuals experiencing homelessness. As again, we try to deal with that issue as well. That's been very, very problematical. The annual Project Prom giveaway starts in a couple of days, something that they're very proud that the Human Service Department has done to be able to provide prom dresses for kids who want to be able to obviously participate in that important event in their high school, but might not have the financial wherewithal to do that, and we can provide things along those lines. We know that the 2nd Avenue shelter has opened, the homeless shelter on 2nd Avenue Commons, and also the Smithfield shelter does remain open and will remain open for some time. The park season, the winter season obviously has come to an end. We had a very mild winter, which I'll talk about with salt usage and things when it comes to our Public Works Department. But it was interesting that we still, at our Boyce Park slopes, had almost 20,000 people who attended, which is a good number. Almost $600,000 in total revenue. Almost 30,000 people went to the North Park Ice Rink, over $200,000 in revenue. South Park Ice Rink, a little bit less, in 22,000 people, and $167,000 in total revenue. And our total winter concessions added a $36,000 profit with some of the concessions that they do. And again, I want to thank the Parks Department and really former manager McCain and some of the initiatives that he put forth during his time in working to make sure that the parks system is moving forward. Some changes that have been instituted recently. For the first time, we're going to have an online system of tee times. We become so popular with our golf courses, both at South Park and North Park, that people will now be able to sign up as opposed to just trying to get there first in line, give people a little more convenience to where they do something. Boyce Park, we're going to be opening up a climbing wall, which is going to be exciting. I think that'll be opened up by the end of the year. Boyce Park's also going to be constructing some pickleball courts and and Hartwood Acres going to be opening up we opened up the sculpture garden that we did just late last year, but opening up a major maintenance facility to be able to help them do the things they're doing. And as we talked about in the past, 2 of our parks are going to become net zero, White Oak and Deer Lakes, and that should be completed in the coming months. So moving forward, that's very, very good news for what's happening in our parks. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention, in North Park, around the tennis courts and pickleball courts, it's a very crowded area where we have cars, we have bikes, we have joggers, we have just a lot of activity. They're constructing a new trail that will allow people to be separated and be a little safer, but still want to be able to use the beauty of the park and be able to make that nice 5-mile loop that we've worked on and constructed over the last few years. So again, the park system is something I think we can all be very, very proud of because of many of the things that we've invested in over the past years, including this year. The parks have been just a tremendous, tremendous asset that people appreciate and we hear about all the time. Back to Public Works, I wanted to talk about the fact that obviously we've had a very mild winter when it came to snow removal and salt usage over time and all the things that we've been able to do, which obviously helps us to be able to start paving a little bit quicker. The great news is we did pave 41 miles of road last year. Our goal was to keep it above 40 every year. That's the 10% of the 400 miles of county road that we own. And over the last 10 years, we have done over 400 miles of road. So we have actually caught up. And again, I want to thank the county manager and his team with Director Shanley and the folks who have worked very hard, Mr. Thompson and the team. They've really, really been very diligent in making sure that they have made that estimate every year, and hopefully that will continue on into the future. They also completed 22 landslide support projects. We know landslides in the past years have really been an issue and probably will continue to be as time goes on. They completed over 10 projects within our county parks, replaced over 6,000 feet of guardrail, line striped almost 200 miles of roadway, et cetera. So I'm really proud of the work that the Public Works Department has done. And the last thing I want to say about the Public Works issue with bridges, when I took office, we had 72 of our 300 bridges that are over 20 feet long that were rated in poor condition. By the end of next year, we will be down to single digits in the amount of poor condition bridges, and they continue to work. As a matter of fact, I think there's 4 bridges that are having public meetings about where people can come in and give their input that will be happening in the coming months, in the coming years. Sustainability, want to talk about, we passed the sustainability issue ordinance and appreciate that, creating a new department. One of the things we've been working on is glass collection in our county parks. The next one is going to be offered is April in Settlers Cabin, so for people that want to return their glass and have it recycled, we'll be able to do that issue. Talk a little bit about the airport as the TMP, the modernization program continues and moving forward in a good way. They're starting the construction on the new parking garage is beginning right now, but we made a couple of exciting announcements over the last month or so that Southwest will be providing daily flights to Austin, Texas. Austin is a very good partner when it comes to the Tech Council, the tech initiatives that we're doing and they're doing, so I think a lot of folks will be availing themselves to that, and also adding daily flights to Phoenix, Arizona in September. That's with Southwest. And Breeze Airways has announced 4 new summer editions: Long Island, Jacksonville, Florida, Portland, Maine, and Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. So they continue to add flights, and we are almost back to where we were pre-pandemic, which I think is pretty impressive for the work that they continue to do. The BRT continues to move forward. The Phase 1 construction contract, I think, has been let just recently, and they're also working on unveiling new bus stops to give people more information about when their vehicle, their bus, their train will be coming. We recently completed the Moncline Incline, was reopened in early March after an $8.2 million million renovation that had begun last August, that I know for folks up in Mount Washington, that was something that they created some inconvenience. And then finally, we announced the bulk pass program, allowing businesses and multifamily building managers to purchase transit, as we want to get more people back to work, particularly in downtown Pittsburgh. And I believe that is all I have, and we'll open it up for any questions for people might have.
Any questions?
I don't think it's a question, but I think you forgot to mention people will be able to get into the airport now without a ticket to, I've seen you in the news mentioning that about the airport, that you don't need a ticket to go see the restaurants and things like that there.
You are able to get a pass. You can't just walk in. You have to, there's a process in which you can get a pass that allows you to do that. That is correct.
Okay.
Director Casonas,
I want to clarify that.
put that into place, yes.
Councilman Dewar?
I'm sorry. County Executive Fitzgerald, you mentioned the Elections Department, and obviously very excited to be serving on the Elections Board with my former colleague, Councilwoman Kirk. But one of the other things that was a change that I know I had brought up with the administration, and I know former Manager McCain and Elections Director David Voigt, it was a very small change that I think folks running for office this year really took advantage of, was the change of the petition sizes, being able to fill those out online and print those out at home. I mean, it was literally, I can't tell you how many people said that was like the defining thing of my career on council, was getting those things changed. I would like to hope that I did a little bit more than that, but it was a significant change. I wanted to thank you, former Manager McCain, and Elections Director David Voigt for making that very small but significant change to make running, especially for local offices like school board and municipal council, a little bit easier. So thank you.
And you know, as someone in your generation, smaller print might be easy, but for those of us of a certain age, we like things in larger print as time goes on. So
The one thing I will say is,
appreciate that as you get to that point.
for the folks who were hoarding legal-size paper for petitions, I apologize, because there was a lot of people who were angry about that now was completely useless for them. So
The one last thing I forgot to mention, we are opening the Learn and Earn program. I know it's something important for a lot of your constituents. That's for the high school kids, that Learn and Earn program, which we hire about 1,500 14 to 18-year-old students. It gives them an ability to earn some money, good money, and work in various organizations that they might want to do. So I want to make that as an announcement as well. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hallam?
Yeah, you mentioned the bulk pass discount for PRT, and I was just wondering if there had been any conversations with the community colleges for them to partake in that, to maybe offer public transportation to their students or even county employees?
I believe all of our universities and colleges have the opportunity to be part of the bulk pass program, and I believe many of them do that. I believe CCAC does as well, but they don't? Okay. I know Pitt does, Duquesne does, I think CMU, Chatham.
Yeah, they've talked to them, and it's offered there. It's offered to everyone. So if it's something that meets the needs of the students, that's what the primary goal is as long as it meets the needs of the students. So I can follow up with Dr. Bullock about it, but I don't believe that they're part of that program. That's my last one.
That's why they're not part of the program. They don't get anything.
It's open to everyone.
Because I brought that up before.
What about county employees? Like, have you purchased it for the employees of the county?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Nakaradi-Tapkus?
Thank you, County Executive. I have a question. As you may have seen or received in an email message today we had an inversion. And so we had the Mon Valley episode rule was in a watch phase, and then a little bit later in the morning, it went to a warning, which then I think would set into those requirements the Mon Valley episodic rule that we all had heard about just within the last couple of weeks. Chairman Klein had a hearing here where we all learned a lot more about that. Has there been any discussion within the Allegheny County Health Department to do an analysis of that rule to find out if it's working, if it doesn't, what needs to be addressed and perhaps changed?
Well, I believe that they continue to analyze what goes on. And that was something just very recently in the last couple of years that we put the episodic rule in place as inversions have become more commonplace. So again, the fact that when that occurs, when we get those atmospheric inversions, the notices go out so that people in the affected areas know what to do and are, can take action for them and their families. And so they'll continue to do that. And I can ask Director Dowd to find a follow-up and get you that information.
That would be helpful. The one thing that I'm seeing is that whenever we get those warnings and watches, we are, if you look at the Liberty Clairton Monitor as an example, at those times, it's already in the orange unhealthy for sensitive population zone or in the red unhealthy for everyone zone. And so in that regard, there was some discussion about whether or not those warnings and watches have to be implemented in an earlier period so that we don't essentially get to the orange or the red zone, so that those emissions are reduced and the air is indeed healthier, cleaner when an inversion occurs.
If I may, so when that episodic rule was put in place, it was, the first of its kind here. So the thought when they put that in place was it would be analyzed because in government, you just can't stay static. You have to continue to be fluid. So they are doing that analysis now. So if there are changes that need to be made, they will go through the proper processes and eventually come here. So yes, that analysis is currently being done. Okay? You're very welcome.
Any other questions? Councilwoman Bennett?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Executive, for giving us the report today. You talked about PRT and the DHS program for SNAP recipients, and I know folks who received that, and it's great. It's a great program. However, I'm wondering if there's any conversation with PRT in the county on how we can update the technology, because even with a free pass, if you go to get on the bus and technology is not working and the bus pass isn't registering, that's not helpful for the person trying to use that transportation.
Well, I will tell you that the PRT is continuing to try to upgrade their technology, whether it's with the pass, whether it's with the smart card, whether it's with the times that are listed to when the next vehicle, the next bus or train will be coming. They will continue to do that. I think it's also important to note that most of the things that PRT gets is limited by the amount of state and federal funding that they get. We, as a county, max out, one of the few counties that maxes out our local share every year. And I would encourage everybody to make sure that we lobby our state representatives, as Act 89 is going to be re-upped again, that transit isn't pushed to the side, if you will. There's obviously going to be a lot of challenges with roads and bridges among what PennDOT is doing, but I think for regions like ours, transit is certainly a critical link for folks to be able to get to school, work, hospital, healthcare, doctor's offices, grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. So I think, it's incumbent upon all of us. The PRT is very limited if they don't have that access, if they don't get that funding from the state and federal government.
Thank you.
One last question from me, Mr. Chief Executive. We've heard lots of discussions recently about the Clean Air Fund and possibly changing the Clean Air Fund so the health department would get more funding. I don't recall that subject coming up during budget discussions. Can you clarify why that would be, or if there was some trouble obviously funding the health department, why that wouldn't have come up then?
Well, the one thing I think we've always tried to do is, in my philosophy has been, I think the people who are doing the polluting should be paying the fare for keeping the health department fully funded with the air quality program. And I'm proud of the fact, again, that we have funded the air quality program and hired more air regulators than any previous administration by far. And the fact that we have an 80% reduction in air pollution over the last 12 years is something we should be very, very proud of. I wish we had an 80% reduction in crime or an 80% reduction in infant mortality or an 80% reduction in dropout rates, et cetera, et cetera. So they're going to continue to work at what they do, and we're going to make sure that we keep that program funded. One of the things that has come up is there are less fines because there are less citations because there's been less pollution. So that's going to continue to probably reduce what goes into the air quality fund. It's kind of a mixed bag. You want to have a fully funded thing, but it only gets funded by pollution. So we want the pollution to be as low as possible, but now we still got to fund the election, or the health department and the air regulators. So I'm sure as we go through the budget process again this year, that could be something that could be looked at.
Okay, because it seems like there's more serious concern about moving money now than ever, and I was just curious as to why that didn't come up during the budgeting sessions we had, so.
The last thing I forgot to mention, we do have the highlights report that I want to have the clerk distribute. This is the 2022 report that we're always very proud of, and you can look at it at your leisure. So.
Okay, are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Executive. We're going to switch around the order for the proclamations and certificates tonight. We're going to move on to 12620-23.
That's a proclamation recognizing and honoring William D. McCain, CPA, for his contributions and successes to Allegheny County, sponsored by the Chief Executive and all members of council.
Thank you. Mr. Chief Executive?
Back up. Usually I get to leave after that, but you know, since I do want to bring up Mr. McCain and his family, and I know other members of council, Willie, Francine, Bryce, Connor, come on up. And you know, I won't read all the whereases. I'll let you guys do all that. I mean, we'll name the day after him, and you know, he gets to swim in all of our pools today and you know, go ski, up the ski, everything you get to do, it's already closed. But I also want to thank the McCain family, because everybody who knows Willie knows the hours that he put in and the dedication that he put in to serving the 1.25 million citizens of Allegheny County. Every day during the pandemic, Willie was in his office. Every day during whatever it was happening, if there was some emergency somewhere, Willie was there. During the election time a couple years ago when you know, it was very, very volatile, he was in that warehouse night after night after night, making sure that things were run properly. And for Francine and Bryce and Connor, who probably had, you know, a few events and a few dinners and a few things that their dad and their husband wasn't there, I just appreciate the fact that they let him serve all the rest of us in Allegheny County. And I know with Jennifer and Steve and the team and all the directors that we've had, his leadership was really something that will be missed. I'm proud of the fact that the Allegheny Conference had the good sense to make him their COO, and he'll be doing great work on behalf of all of us in that great organization beyond Allegheny. I guess it's a 10-county operation that they do. But I just want to thank Willie for the work that he did. Again, if I went through all Willie's things, we'd be here all night reading all the things that he did. But I'll just get to the very end and do the last one, and we'll do it for the record. Now therefore be it resolved that the citizens of Allegheny County, I on behalf of them, county executive and all members of county council, you guys all know who you are, don't have to read all your names. We want to thank Willie McCain for the great work that he has done, and we hereby name March 21st, 2023 as Willie McCain Day in Allegheny County. Before he gets up, I forgot to say there is one from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, from the Lieutenant Governor, who served so many years with Manager McCain and learned an awful lot among Willie. But Willie, please, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Rich. So I actually, because I knew this day was coming, I actually wrote some things down, and I'm going to try to say them. So this day is really, really special to me because I love my job. I didn't want to come here, and but they thought it was really important that I come because of what this county means to me and what it means. So I'm going to try to say this from my heart. and I'm really flattered. Thank you. So I want to thank, I have a lot of people to thank tonight, a lot of people. I want to thank Rich for appointing me county manager. I'm going to say publicly what I said to him privately, and I'm internally grateful for this opportunity he provided me to be county manager. You never know where your career is going to go, and he took a chance on a kid from Southside. Let me come back here and work, and it's really special to me. Thank you. Thank you, Rich. I want to thank Jennifer Liptak for recommending me to be county manager. People might not know this, but I never met Rich before. I never knew Rich before I got hired. I knew Jennifer. Jennifer and I go back a long way, and I'm going to tell you publicly what I told her privately, and it was that I told her that she recommended me for this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for this job because she's a once-in-a-lifetime friend, and thank you. Thank you so much. For my core team of administration, Steve and Amy and Andy, Heather, Sonia, Marie, Darla, Patricia, Teresa, cast of thousands, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you. And I told Amy, like, one of the many great things about this job is you meet people you would have never met before. A lot of the people in this room, I would have never met you. And those friendships I'll cherish forever, honestly, every day. To my directors and the county employees, you were absolutely the best, and don't you let anyone tell you differently. You are the best. I'm so proud of you and what you do. You help people every day, and you should be so proud of what you do. I am qualified to tell you, you make a difference. You know, Rich likes to point out that unlike other administrations, it worked out that, like, most of us stayed here for 10, 11, 12 years. And I have to tell you, that stability helps our government. And when you work together 7 days a week, 8, 9, 10 days, 10 hours a day, like, you are a family. Like, you really are. And that's everyone here. And I couldn't be more proud of the things that we've accomplished. You know, we help a lot of communities improve their quality of life. We literally save people's lives, and we make it better. And I find that very rewarding, but I think that's what everyone does here. That's what we do in this government. All of you and everyone that's listening, you know, the joy of public service is helping people, and that's what we do, and I find it so rewarding. I also want to thank County Council, past and present, elected officials and staff, Ken, Jared, Sarah, Jordan. I believe the manager's office is that bridge between the legislative branch and the executive branch. And I believe the relationship that we've had has been really, really solid. I mean, all of you have been so respectful to me. You know, we communicated a lot, you know, most daily, and I mean every day, day and night. It was with mutual respect. I really respect the work that you do. This is a new form of government, and I think it works. I really do. I think it works. I think it really works very well. And so your recognition to me tonight means, like, so much to me, so I want to thank you. And, you know, Rich, you know, talked about my family, and I was offered this job, and I talked to Francine, and you see the boys here. We went out, this is like 11 years ago, and they were a lot smaller. They were actually smaller than I was at that time. And we went out to dinner, and, you know, Francine says, I mean, Daddy's going to have this really, really busy job. It was busier than we thought, huh? And thank you, Francine, for letting me do something that I love. And you really should recognize her for letting me do something I want to do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to make you proud. But lastly, I really want to talk about how important county government is. You know, it really is important. And I mean all branches, executive, legislative, council, the courts, row offices. Like, I worked for municipalities. I've been in government for over 30 years. I worked for municipalities, school districts, and I've seen what they do, and they do a terrific job. I'm very well aware of what state government brings, federal government brings, but I'll tell you, this government, I'll tell you, we do it better than anybody. We're positioned to help people more than anybody. I'm telling you, I'm very qualified to tell you that. We do core public services, really better than anybody. We actually have life changes things. And people criticize government, and I get it. We deserve that sometimes. But I'll tell you, man, when they're in trouble, they turn here. They turn to us, and we deliver. We all saw it, during COVID. We answered the bell. Our employees took care of our government, and they also helped all of our citizens that needed that. And so we safeguarded our people, the people around us. I think we did it better than anyone in the country. So the only thing that I'm asking is please don't forget how important the role that you all play in this government. And for me to be part of that government and protect people, enhance quality of life, is one of the greatest privileges I've ever had. I'm very blessed, and it's been an honor to serve. Thank you.
If you will, just for a minute. Let me go on this side. Willie, you've given your heart and soul to this county, so it's only appropriate that we give him a piece of the county back. This was on the roof of this building for 130 years, this roof slate. We replaced the roof, in 2020? So we did scrub it up hard, but you can see it's the original. It's 130 years old. And it just says William D. McCain, CPA, Allegheny County Manager, 8/1 of 12 to 2/3 of 23, with the seal of the county and then a picture of the courthouse. So you never forget us, ever. And you made the county a better place. I'll keep it simple.
It means a lot. Thank you.
And here.
Thank you so much.
Before we do pictures, does anyone want to say anything? Councilman Dewar?
Willie. So, I am incredibly lucky that I represent the district that you live in, and I always say my favorite McCain first was Bryce, since I met him first. And I was lucky to have both you and former Solicitor Zeffie, now Judge Zeffie, both live in my district, and I met you two very, very early on, and was incredibly lucky to be able to learn from the two of you. But honestly, Willie, people ask me all the time, who runs the county, how does Rich do it? And I say, well, Rich doesn't run the county, Willie McCain does.
Exactly.
I am so grateful to have been surrounded in my early career with such dedicated public servants around the campaigns I've worked on and serving on this body, and right at the top of that list is you. You are the embodiment of what public service truly is. Someone who's behind the scenes, who never asks for thanks, who puts his heart and soul and every ounce of himself into making this county and this region a better place. And we are all of us, myself who grew up in this region, who, our region is growing again because of the work that you have done and this administration has done to help shift that change and that outlook. And, I hope you know how grateful I am, and for the tens of thousands of people who never will meet you, I hope you know you have impacted their lives in such a significant way by the work you have done. And wherever you go from here, obviously I'm super happy with your new position, but you will always, Willie, have a mark on this county and on this government. And I'm very happy to represent you. I'm on county council. I'm very happy to have worked alongside you and to have someone else in my life to look up to as I try to model my public service after some of the best people I know. So thank you very much, Willie.
Councilman Futulis?
Willie, well, thank you so much. Being here almost 16 years, my first 4 years, I watched this county go backwards. In the last 12 years, I've seen it go forward in a way I've never seen before with this administration. And the innovative things that I've seen, websites and even the documentaries of what goes on in this county, I'm sure we had something to do with. And you were always there for me. Anytime I called you, emailed you, texted you, you always answered me and you always gave me the answer I wanted. I just want to thank you for that. Thank you so much.
Councilman DeMarco?
Well, I want to tell you that the 7+ years I've been on county council, working with you has been one of the greatest and most distinct honors and pleasures. For all of my constituents out there, anything that I did on your behalf and help that I gave you was done because of Mr. McCain. He has an incredible work ethic. I would get texts at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I would still see him here at 7:30 at 8 o'clock at night. For folks who wonder how hard people work as public servants, there's not a harder worker out there than Willie McCain. And I can't tell you what a distinct honor and pleasure it's been to get to know you and to work with you, and I wish you and your family the very best in the future, my friend. Thank you.
Councilman Walton?
Willie, it has been a privilege and an honor for me to work with you. I clearly understand the sacrifices that your family has made in order to allow you to do the things that you do with the integrity, with the sincerity and the accountability, and most importantly, the success that you've been able to generate. Thank you, Francine, Bryce, and Connor, for giving up the old man. Because again, we live in a better community as a result of the things that you've given up. To Wooly, hey man, you've been a friend. You've been an ally. You've looked for solutions to problems that people that I represent have been confronted with, people that I work with have challenges that they've made. And some of the things that will go unsaid tonight that you know and I know you've done. Thank you. And the great thing is, as I said, I don't have to come all the way up to Grant Street now. I can just look out my window and throw a rock and say, Willie. Thank you. Congratulations. Let's move forward, brother.
Councilman Macy?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of council. I can truly say that this old guy, I really appreciate our friendship. Willie is such a humble guy. Just this little guy, this steel worker from the Mon Valley, always had Willie's ear. He would come out of meetings because he knew whatever I was doing was really important, and that Willie just wanted to hear, and he was concerned about what I had to say. Willie is a true public servant. Don't anybody ever call him a politician, because he serves. He's not a politician. Thank you, Willie. It's an honor to be your friend.
Councilman Palmesino?
Thank you, Mr. President. I could probably sit here and go on and on with all the things you have done for this county, but seeing the raw emotion just shows how much you care. But as good of a worker you are, I think you're a better husband and a better father. So we're going to miss you. You will never be replaced. I've been here my second term, and you were always a phone call away from me. And I never thought about you as always nothing but a friend. So I wish you and your family, they're lucky to have you, but don't change your phone number.
Councilman Klein?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of council. When I joined county council 7 years ago, I think one of the first people I met was Willie McCain, and I've never recovered. And I've never recovered because he set the bar as high as it could be set in terms of what you could expect from a public servant. Willie is a consummate public servant, a true professional who did his work for this county with pride and with purpose, and perhaps most importantly, with a true sense of decency. I feel very fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with him. He is really the gold standard when it comes to public service, and our loss is truly the gain of the Allegheny Conference. In many respects, I think about Willie as a man for all seasons. He was always ready to meet any contingency, any challenge that came his way, and to discharge his duties, his responsibilities in this county in a way that, well, every day he really measured up. And he was committed, I think, to serving the truth and not opinion. So, Willie, I will miss you. I miss you right now. And thank you very much for what you've done.
Anyone else? Last but not least, thank you, Willie. Words cannot express. You were there on day one for me, and I hate to see you leave now. I mean, you've always been there. You've been a true gentleman. You're the type of guy that no matter how hard we would argue back and forth about different things, you and I could still go out after 5 for that beer. So thank you, Mr. McCain, for all of your service and years to Allegheny County. You deserve the best. Thank you. Ready for pictures? Can't run, Rich.
Yeah, I can have you guys step all the way to the front.
Okay.
All right, sitting there.
Bring in some alumni.
Yes, the best one here. And then we'll.
Okay, everybody, right on me. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Do a couple more. 3, 2, 1.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chuck.
Coming around.
Now we'll go on to 12619-23.
A proclamation recognizing the month of March is National Kidney Month, and March 9th is World Kidney Day, sponsored by Councilmember Filiaggi.
There you go. All right, all right. Why don't you stand right here? Hello. What a wonderful day we're having. Lots of good people in this county. I'm sure we cannot deny that. So today, I have the privilege and honor to present the National Kidney Month and World Day Proclamation. We have some guests with us today that we would like to present. Holly
Turkovic is the Senior Manager of Community Outreach at the National Kidney Foundation. Jamie Greenwald is here, and she's the Director of Development at the National Kidney Foundation. Phil Petraglia and his wife, Ginny, are also here. Phil is a CPA and has had a long career as a financial executive. He's a prolific volunteer. Obviously, he volunteers his time with the National Kidney Foundation, but he also volunteers time with the River City Brass Band, his Presbyterian Church, and his alma mater, Westminster College. Phil undoubtedly attributes his ability to participate in so many worthwhile programs to his life-saving kidney transplant that he had in 2007, and the donor for that transplant was his wife, Ginny. We also have another guest today, is Cindy Kirk, as luck would have it. She's here, and she's my friend, and she's a former member of council, but the member who normally presented this proclamation.
The Kidney Foundation.
Yes. And so at this point, I'm going to make an effort to channel the indomitable force of Cindy Kirk and present this in a way that I think she would approve of by reminding all of you that, hey, did you know that the National Kidney Foundation is a leading patient-centric organization in the United States dedicated to the awareness and prevention and treatment of kidney disease, and is calling on all Americans to take care of their kidneys and participate in raising awareness about kidney disease. And in her style of caring for all of our health and wellness, or the health and wellness of the people that she loves, she would also remind you that there's 7 golden rules of kidney disease and prevention. 1, you get regular checkups. 2, you control your blood pressure. 3, you manage your blood sugar. 4, you eat a healthy diet. 5, you exercise. 6, you quit smoking. And 7, you don't overuse pain meds, right? Some straight talking.
And be happy. Good mental health too helps.
Absolutely. So getting to some of the meat of the proclamation, whereas there is an estimated 37 million adults in the United States with kidney disease, and 1 in 3 adults in the United States are at risk. 660,000 people live with kidney failure, and 100,000 people are waiting for a kidney transplant. Whereas most people are unaware that the risks for kidney disease include diabetes, heart disease, high blood pressure, obesity, and family history, with diabetes being the leading cause of kidney disease. Whereas to generate awareness for the chronic disease, and the month of March is now National Kidney Month, and March 9th is World Kidney Day. Whereas across the globe, events will take place and have taken place for World Kidney Day. And this year, the National Kidney Foundation staff was at the Pittsburgh City County building to assemble for Drive for Dialysis care packages for patients on dialysis. Whereas in celebration of National Kidney Month, the National Kidney Foundation would like to recognize Phil Petraglia, as he celebrates his birthday today on March 21st. Mr. Petraglia, right, is a kidney transplant recipient who received his transplant in January of 2007. And because of his kidney transplant, Mr. Petraglia has been able to travel and celebrate many more birthdays. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the members of Allegheny County Council do hereby declare March to be National Kidney Month and March 9th to be World Kidney Day in Allegheny County, and we recognize the National Kidney Foundation for its continued efforts to fight this epidemic and build a brighter future for the families of Allegheny County. Thank you very much. And we'd like to have Mr. Petraglia come up and tell us some of his story.
And I was a dialysis nurse too. Yes, for many years.
Well, thank you. It's truly an honor to be here. What she didn't mention is one of my volunteer activities too is I volunteered to be the president of my HOA board, and I'm retired, so people ask me, like, why did you do that? What's that like? And, you know, maybe you all can kind of relate. I always tell people it's like being on the school board, except without the praise and glory. So my story is back in 1996, I was diagnosed with a hereditary disease called polycystic kidney disease. It's a disease in which cysts begin to form on both kidneys, and it eventually destroys your kidneys to the point where you have no kidney function. Patients who have this disease, and it's one of many kidney disease, sometimes their kidneys get so large, their kidneys become the size of watermelons. Now, fortunately, I didn't get to that point, but I visited a surgeon, and shortly after I was diagnosed, and he said, well, you'll probably need a kidney transplant. Come back and see me when you need a transplant. And so I went home. Flash forward about 10 years, my disease progressed. Fortunately, I did hook up with a nephrologist who tried to help me, but it was a foregone conclusion that I was going to need a kidney transplant. And before me and joining me up here today is a woman who, on June 30th, 1990, gave her heart to me in the front of a church. And on January 22nd, 2007, we were wheeled into side-by-side operating rooms, and they took one of her kidneys and put it inside me. And I tell people, not many people get to go to sleep every night with their hero, but I do. You covered a lot of the information about kidney disease. 1 in 3 people are at risk. 1 in 7 have chronic kidney disease. And the really sad thing is that 90% of those people don't even know they have it. The problem with kidney disease is by the time you begin to show symptoms, it's too late. Your kidneys, you can still function until your kidneys get down to maybe 15%. But by the time you begin to show symptoms of that, you've lost the opportunity to take any preventive actions. And so that's, one of the things that the National Kidney Foundation is all about. Because really that's, why I'm here today. It's not about my story, but it's to kind of educate people, including the people in the audience here. She mentioned about the number of people that need transplants, 100,000 people. That's enough to fill up Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium, and PNC Park, all waiting for a transplant. Every day, 17 of those people will die just because there's not enough kidneys. So for that, the National Kidney Foundation came up with a program called the Big Ask, Big Give. And that's a program where people who are in need of a kidney, the Kidney Foundation trains them how to be an advocate for yourself and how to go about finding a potential living donor. Let's talk about dialysis. Dialysis costs an individual about $75,000 a year or more. Fortunately, Medicare covers a large portion of that, but the total cost to Medicare is $8 to $9 billion a year just for dialysis. Total cost spent by Medicare for all kidney patients is $130 billion a year. If we can get to the point where we're helping people before they progress to that point, the savings are just enormous. So another program the Kidney Foundation has is a lot of these people have no transportation to even get to dialysis. So they have a program that provides transportations for those who don't have available transportation to get to their dialysis treatments. Another program is they have a program called Your Kidneys in You, in which they educate the public what your kidneys are, how they work, how important they are, and what some of the risk factors are, and preventive steps that you can take so that you don't become one of those 100,000 people that need a transplant. They also undertake advocacy efforts. They're always encouraging Congress to increase dollars to prevent end-stage renal disease and the subsequent costs of dialysis and treatment. They encourage Congress to pass the Living Donor Protection Act, which is an act which protects living donors, and it protects the individuals who donate a kidney protects them from losing their job. It protects them from being discriminated against when they go to apply for insurance. It gives them extended FMLA leave, among other things. In closing, what can you do? You know, nobody likes to think about their mortality, but you know, an individual can potentially be a donor to 8 individuals. You know, eyes, kidneys, heart, lungs, bowels. The list goes on and on. They're now doing full face transplants, incredibly enough. And so while nobody likes to think about their time ending here on Earth, you know, if it's yourself, or if it's your son or daughter, if it's your grandchild, and they're in need of any transplant, wouldn't you like to think somebody who passed on made that decision for your loved one? I tell people that anybody who is an organ donor, it's the greatest gift you can live, because it's a gift not only to the recipient, it's a gift to whoever loves that recipient, whoever cares about that recipient. So you're not gifting to just one individual. Once again, and you know, listen up, the risk factors are diabetics, high blood pressure, if you have a family history of kidney failure, 60 or older, which being today's my birthday, I now qualify, obesity, heart disease, and the minority population. Blacks have a 4 times greater chance than the white population of progressing to end-stage renal disease. Why? I could take the rest of the evening. There's so many socioeconomic factors and all, but you know, there's a 4 times greater risk. So the Kidney Foundation came up with this program called Are You the 33%? Are you the 33% that's at risk of developing kidney disease and potentially end-stage renal failure? So the best thing you can do for yourself, for your loved one, is encourage your doctors to do screenings. And screening is simply a blood and maybe a urine test. And from that, they can tell your kidney function and whether, you know, you need to take some progressive action. Thank you on behalf of the National Kidney Foundation of the Alleghenies, their hardworking staff, and the 37 million people that are suffering from chronic kidney disease. And I'll leave you with these last 6 words. Get tested. Get tested. Get tested. Thank you. Oh, sure. Sure.
Excellent. You did a great job.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to go for pictures. Jimmy, do you want to come over?
Thank you. You did great.
Can you get one of those proclamations? Can you join us up here? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I wanted to get a.
Oh, I can take it too, Holly. I got you.
Goodness. And I worked.
Whoa. No, I mean, I feel like taking what's going on here, unless you want to. You rescued me.
I can't see you. There you go. All right. You can't see me, I can't see you. That's right. Ready? Everybody on me right here. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Gotcha.
All right, and say happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right, cool. Good job. Okay.
Absolutely. And you had a cat at the bottom.
Hey, have a good night.
See you, John.
Good luck tonight. Tom?
Tom? Who used to be like pretty far before Chan Big Brothers.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah. Lila Baker will be there. All right.
We have one proclamation that we're going to put into the record, but I believe it will not be presented. 126.
Congratulations. A certificate recognizing Caitlin J. Miller for her dedicated service to guiding youth in her community, sponsored by Councilmember Paul Messina.
Okay, come on up.
It's very jolly.
Thank you all very much. This will be a lot faster than the last hour, I can promise you that. So over the last 32 years, I started a program called the Little Dribblers Program up in my neighborhood for in the West End area for children. At first, it was from 3rd grade to 4th grade. Now the kids are so advanced. This year, we had children from 3 years old till 9 years old, which is hard to believe. But a year ago, an 8th grader, Caitlin, came to me and says, "I'd like to help you out." And I'm thinking, yeah, she'll come one Saturday, and I'll never see her again. I don't think in 2 years she ever missed a Saturday morning. Now, they're long days. We get there about 7. Parents come in. This year we had 48 kids, so we had a 8 a.m. session, and we had a 9 a.m., 8 a.m. and a 9 a.m., so they were long days, and Caitlin never missed. That's the kind of girl she is. She's a freshman at Olsh, and I am thinking of big things for her. She's very confident. She's great with the kids. She's a mentor. I grew up with her, with Bob, her dad, who's a policeman and who I respect very much. So I'll read this and I'll let you take it from here because I know you're excited to talk. Certificate of Recognition award to Caitlin J. Miller. Allegheny County Council was pleased to present this certificate to Caitlin J. Miller in recognition of her commitment and dedication, her Saturdays over the last couple years, coaching and mentoring the younger players at St. Raphael's and Green Tree. Caitlin is a freshman at Our Lady of Sacred Heart High School and is a member of the girls cross country team. This council acknowledges Caitlin for her dedicated service to guiding youth in her community. She serves as an inspiration to this council and the citizens of Allegheny County. Congratulations, Caitlin.
Well, thank you, Coach Bob. Hello, my name is Caitlin Miller, and I'm a freshman at Olsh in Coraopolis. I'm a member of the track and cross country teams. I've been helping out Councilman Paul Messina, aka Coach Bob, for 2 years now. To give you a little information on what I've been doing these past 2 years with him is showing up to my grade school, Guardian Angel Academy, every Saturday to help young kids play basketball. I'd help Coach Bob set up drills and help keep all the kids in their lines. My first year coaching, I guess you could have considered me a rookie. I was kind of just learning as we went along. I knew I had it in me to be a better coach that was more experienced. I've learned so much at Olsh this year already, even though I'm just a freshman. During cross-country season, I had 2 amazing coaches, Coach Hamilton and Coach Reese. They taught me everything I needed to know about being a better runner, but they even taught me how to be a better coach. They showed me how important it was to spend that extra time with someone to make them better. I can remember vividly all the times they would pull me aside and show me the proper running form to become faster. If they're watching this meeting right now or later, just know I think I mastered the running form. Every time I run, I remember to get my wrists to my hips. Anyway, I knew I could always count on them. I wanted those kids to have the same experience I had with Coach Hamilton and Coach Reese. I felt like the kids this year at this basketball program knew they could always count on me. I'd spend that extra time with them to make sure they understood what they were doing. Not only could they count on me, but they could always count on Coach Bob. I knew that I could always count on him too. He has done so much for me, whether that's signing off on service hour forms or writing letters of recommendations. My favorite memories are when we would get into debates on whether Olsh or Canterman was better at all the basketball practices. Let's just say neither of us won those. I love how relatable Coach Bob was. He'd do anything for you and his community. To me, he is a role model. I wouldn't be surprised if I get into a county council wherever I end up when I'm older. I absolutely love what Coach Bob does. Since I go to a Catholic high school, I figured I should add some words of wisdom from a Bible. For it is God who works in you to will and to act in order to fulfill his good purpose. Philippians 2:13. I truly believe that everyone is put on this world to do good. I want to thank my family, friends, and OSH for truly recognizing how much work I put into this program. Last, but certainly not least, I want to thank you, Coach Bob, for everything you've done for me, especially for this proclamation, which is such an honor. I always knew I had someone that believed in me and appreciated my work ethic. I plan on helping you out for years to come. By the way, Coach Bob, go OSH. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Seconds for your response, and then they take the mic away.
Sure.
You just weren't going to rest, were you?
Coach Bob.
Can I have you guys shift this way? Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. There you go. All right. Okay, everybody right here on me. Okay, ready? And 3, 2, 1. All right, Coach Bob on me. Ready? Gotcha.
Nice job.
I got 2 kids in the NFL. We'll see who's called Coach Bob. Yeah. I got 2 kids in the NFL. See what they want to say about that.
Okay, the remaining proclamations will be read into the record. 12621-23.
A proclamation recognizing March 18th, 2023 as National Public Defenders Day in Allegheny County and across the Commonwealth, sponsored by Councilmember Hallam.
12623-23.
A proclamation recognizing Dan Geibel for his contributions to the Township of Reserve, sponsored by Councilmember Pritzio.
12624-23.
A proclamation recognizing the 50th Annual Conference of the Association for Business Stimulation and Experiential Learning, sponsored by Councilmember Klein.
Excuse me, President. To the PD National Public Defenders Day proclamation.
Public defenders.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on agenda?
We have several. First up is Zachary Barber.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Zachary Barber. I'm the Clean Air Advocate with Penn Environment. I'm a resident here in Allegheny County. Penn Environment is a statewide, people-powered environmental advocacy group working for clean air, clean water, and open spaces. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about that first one, clean air. So as you may have heard, unfortunately, Allegheny County has some of the dirtiest air in the entire country, and a lot of it comes from industrial pollution, which the Allegheny County Health Department has the Clean Air Act authority to regulate and to clean up. And the EPA has proposed lowering the acceptable standards for soot pollution in our air. And one reason why I hope you will support the resolution here tonight encouraging the EPA to move forward with those regulations is that will make life easier for the Allegheny County Health Department and for us here in the county. Since we, as we've heard, the county has been afraid to go beyond the existing standards for fear of what would happen if they got challenged in court. They frequently said that they need the federal government to go further. Now the federal government is going further. So I hope we all can stand together in support of this. Soot pollution is tiny microscopic particles of industrial pollution that can go deep into our body, gets past our nose and into our blood. It's linked to cancer, asthma, premature death, other health problems. And since we have high levels of it here in Allegheny County, our region would be a place that would see healthier lives, longer lives as a result of lowering the standard. And once again, this is something the federal government's going to do, and we just need to help them do it. I know we're all in support of letting someone else be the bad guy, so this is an opportunity for the county to not have to be the bad guy here and get a little help here from the EPA. So I hope you will encourage and support the resolution tonight. Thank you, Councilman Klein, for sponsoring this, and I'm sure we will hear more about this, so I will yield the rest of my time.
Next is Matthew Mahalik.
Hi there, I'm Matt Mahalik. I am the director of the Breathe Project. Thank you for letting me speak this evening. How did you all enjoy this beautiful spring morning? It was beautiful in every respect except for air quality, especially in the Mon Valley. At 12:38 a.m., there was a spike in air pollution, propelling the Liberty Monitor to read an air quality index of 124 for fine particles, making it the #2 worst monitor in the U.S. By 2:31 a.m., the situation got worse. It jumped to 162, red, unhealthy for everyone, and ranked #1 worst in the country. That remained in the red all morning, reaching a reading of 170 at 9:31 a.m. Why this spike? All evidence points to the Clairton Coke Works. We know this because the rapid rise in pollution means it comes from a large source. Many residents in the Mon Valley, particularly around Clairton, submitted geocoded smell reports through the Smell Pittsburgh app. I wish this were an isolated incident. It's not. Our county has appeared as #1 on this worst list over 10% of all days in 2023 and 2022. It's in the top 10 about 40% of all days from 2022. The most important thing this institutional body can do, and what each county council member can do, is send in comments to the US EPA by March 28th, demanding that the agency improve its annual average fine particles and soot standard so that it can be set to 8 micrograms per cubic meter. This will protect public health better than keeping it at 12 or even the suggested 9 to 10 level. More importantly, and this is something that I didn't see in the resolution, you should include in your comments a demand to improve the 24-hour standard so that it's set to 25 micrograms per cubic meter and make the standard a 24-hour rolling average instead of a midnight to midnight standard. It's currently set to 35 micrograms per cubic meter. It's reasonable to risk our region's poor cancer statistics, where we're in the top 1% of counties for point source air pollution, as well as many voices heard in the Mon Valley about family and community disruptions to these ongoing acute air pollution episodes. The situation needs to stop. There's one other thing I'd also like council to do. Please consider calling for an independent, transparent audit of the health department because of recent budget issues coming to light that do not make sense. Why is the county manager running air quality meetings, subcommittee meetings at the health department? Going back to the standard, you all have a chance to save thousands of lives, reduce burdens on vulnerable people, and take action that makes everyone proud of our county by embracing these improvements. Thank you very much for your action tonight.
Next is Laurie Davidson.
Hi, ditto on the science of what both of those guys just said. I'm here to thank you for supporting the EPA adopting higher standards for our air quality. And just to make it a little more personal, I served the children of Allegheny County for 33 years now as a public servant, and I work mostly in Mon Valley, and my reactive airway condition has gotten progressively worse for 30 of those 33 years now, to the point that I've needed to take this year off because getting up and down the stairs is too difficult. No one else in my family has asthma. They all live in other cities with clean air. It impacts us, and it makes me really sad that the minute I retire, I got to get out of here because the air is unsafe for me to live here. So I appreciate all that you can do for the younger generation so that my children don't have to grow up in the air that I experienced as most of my adult life here. So thank you for supporting what the EPA is doing and trying to make it, if you can, what he said, make it 8 instead of 9 to 10, that would be even better. Thank you.
Next is Joy Bronstein.
Hi, my name is Joy Bronstein. I work with Clean Water Action. I'm a resident of the east end of Allegheny County, Squirrel Hill specifically. I have 2 small children that live in that neighborhood, and there's a lot of mornings, I've said this before in front of you, there's a lot of mornings I open up my door to let my dogs out and think, oh my gosh, we're in another very bad air day. Like, why on earth do we have to deal with this constantly? You've heard from us repeatedly over the last couple of months about this issue. I cannot tell you how grateful I am that you're actually bringing to your colleagues, Councilman Klein and Councilwoman Prezio, the vote tonight to support the EPA's movement on this to change our air standards. I strongly believe that doing this and the voices that are going to come from other elected officials and the voices of the public in Allegheny County will get the EPA to make this change, and that will change our air for the better, so that we don't have these episodes, so that we don't have children in the hospital, so that we don't have people dying of very, very preventable disease. You know, on a day when my phone rings 3 times in the same day to change the air quality expectations, like, it's not working, right? So thank you for doing the right thing. Please do move it down to 8, and please specifically put into your will of council a change on both the daily and the annual standard. It will be the absolute most important thing that this body can do for the health of our community this year. Thank you.
Last on agenda topics is Jay Walker.
Good evening. My name is Jay Ting Walker, and I'm an outreach coordinator with Clean Air Council, a nonprofit environmental health organization with offices in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The council has been working to protect everyone's right to a healthy environment for over 50 years. The council has approximately 35,000 members, including many in Allegheny County. Today, Allegheny County Council will be voting on motion 12633-23 to urge the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, to lower its annual average standard for particulate matter 2.5. These particles are so small that they can directly enter the bloodstream. The residents I personally work with in Clairton, Pennsylvania, and surrounding communities through the organization Valley Clean Air Now speak consistently about the cumulative health impacts of PM 2.5 from living in the area. Clairton, Pennsylvania hosts the Clairton Coke Works facility, a major PM 2.5 emitter. The motion currently urges the EPA to lower the annual average from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9 to 10 micrograms per cubic meter. Clean Air Council requests an amendment to the motion instead, urging the EPA to lower the annual average standard to 8 micrograms per cubic meter. We additionally ask for the council to further urge EPA to lower the average 24-hour standard from 35 micrograms per cubic meter to 25 micrograms per cubic meter to lessen the suffering of the residents who are sickened from short-term PM 2.5 spikes. That these lower limits are necessary to protect the health of Allegheny County's residents is backed up by the experience of residents, the data presented in EPA's Integrated Science Assessment, ISA report, the recommendations of the 2022 Clean Air Scientific Advisory Committee of the EPA, KSAC, and the recent guidelines presented by the World Health Organization. An annual standard average of at most 8 micrograms per cubic meter is also supported by many of our county, state, and federal environmental organizations. A PM 2.5 standard of 8 micrograms per cubic meter would have prevented deaths and health conditions that have directly impacted residents, their family, and their friends today. The data in the ISA report shows a linear relationship between mortality and PM 2.5 concentrations. The lower the standard value, the more public health will be protected. For every 1 microgram per cubic meter the annual average is lowered, 10,000 U.S. lives per year would be saved. An annual average standard of 8 micrograms per cubic meter, as opposed to a standard of 9 to 10 micrograms per cubic meter, would save 10 to 20,000 lives based on the best science available. In addition, the 2021 World Health Organization guidelines on PM 2.5 recommends a PM 2.5 level as low as 5 micrograms per cubic meter to prevent harmful human health impacts. Lastly, please consider urging EPA to measure the 24-hour average as a rolling average instead of measuring measuring it from midnight to midnight. Residents often experience overnight spikes which are not considered because they are split across 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
We'll move on to approval of minutes 12612-23.
A motion to approve the minutes of the December 6, 2022 regular meeting of council.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
I have a question. Are we normally this far behind on our minutes? I know I've been seeing emails asking for minutes, and I just wanted to know for general information, is this typically how far behind we are? Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Did someone make, I thought you just made the motion. Did you make the motion or you didn't make the motion?
Oh, I'll make
I
the.
could make a motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Presentation of appointments. All of the presented appointments are referred to the Committee on Appointment Review. If there are no objections, I'd like the clerk to read them all now at this point. Hearing no objections, go ahead.
12614-23, approving the appointment of James Kuhn to the Friends of the Park for Boyce Park for a term to expire on March 30th, 2026, sponsored by Councilmember Nakaradi Chapkus. 12615-23, approving the appointment of Phyllis J. Anderson to the Allegheny County Conservation District Board for a term to expire on December 31st, 2026, sponsored by the Chief Executive. 12616-23, approving the appointment of Kelly Ware, Esquire, to the Human Relations Commission of Allegheny County for a term to expire on December 31st, 2026, sponsored by the Chief Executive. 12617-23, approving the appointment of Alan Shepard to the Community College of Allegheny County Board of Trustees for a term to expire on April 23rd, 2027, sponsored by the Chief Executive. And 12618-23, approving the appointment of Timothy E. Chesley to the Community College of Allegheny County Board of Trustees for a term to expire on December 31st, 2027, also sponsored by the Chief Executive.
Thank you. All unfinished business. Committee on Public Safety for the second reading.
Bill number 12578-23, an ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending section 1007.11 of the County Administrative Code, codified in Chapter 5 of the County Code of Ordinances as Article 1007 to provide for an exclusion from the residency requirement for county employment for Allegheny County jail staff within the Allegheny County Bureau of Corrections, sponsored by Councilmembers Hallam, Bennett, Macy, Fatulis, and Katina.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Public Safety met on March 15th and affirmatively recommended this ordinance, and so I move a motion. Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, roll call vote, please, Jerry.
On the motion to approve, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Beckowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi. Yes. Mr. Fatulis. Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Mason. Awesome. Ms. Nakaradi Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 13 with 2 members not present. The bill passes.
12610-23.
Motion of the Council of Allegheny County requesting the performance of a historical overview of the former Schumann Juvenile Detention Center, formation of a juvenile justice study group, and a full and transparent overview of the current needs of the county's juvenile justice system within the context of a juvenile detention facility prior to any final determination regarding the use of the former Schumann Center site, sponsored by Councilmembers Katina, Palmasina, Nakaradi Chapkus, Bennett, and Klein.
I believe we have amendments to the bill to consider, but first I'll need a motion to approve and a second to begin discussion.
So moved.
Second. Motion has been made and seconded. Ms. Bennett?
We met again on March 15th, and this was returned without recommendations. So that motion's already been made.
Councilman Walton?
Yes, I'd like to introduce Walton 1, Amendment Walton 1.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion after you have a chance to read it? This was also sent out prior to the meeting.
Mr. President, I had a comment. I just want clarification. So we're going from 7 members to 11 members in this proposal?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a question, comment, I guess, if anyone wants to answer it. I'm just wondering specifically about the whereas clauses that were taken out. It seems that this amendment includes taking out any history of cited violations, investigations, and licensure issues since at least 2008. It takes out that whole paragraph and takes out lines about the burden borne by juvenile offenders and their families. And I'm just wondering if someone who is either sponsoring this amendment or supportive of it can talk about why they felt it was necessary to remove those historical data points from this.
Simply, from my perspective, simply put, the history is the history and it's factual. And it serves no useful purpose. To raise those superfluous kinds of issues. You may have a different opinion, but again, the amendment is designed to resolve the challenges that we're confronted with, and not make accusations. And some of them are matters of interpretation. The citations themselves by the state are factual. Those opinions are opinions.
Any other discussion?
I would just like to say, just looking at that and that first whereas clause, I believe my colleague was referring to, when they were talking about the violations and things like that, it was also further statements where it said, well, the county did not undertake those remedial actions. I mean, we don't know all of what the county did or did not try to do before the permit was finally revoked by the state. So to have that in there, I don't think just makes sense. I would agree with Councilman Walton on that particular point there. And then also, when I'm looking here at the second, well, actually, this is the page 2, I guess, third whereas, where he strikes the sudden permanent closure. I mean, I don't believe the adjectives are necessarily, helpful. The closure of the Schumann Center, we all know what that's done. That's why it's in the news today. That's why we're taking up a study group and creating that. So I think the striking of that was appropriate. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes. Any other comments? Hearing none, Jared, please take a roll call vote on the amendment.
On the motion to adopt Amendment Walton 1, Ms. Bennett?
No.
Mr. Petkowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis is not here. Ms. Hallam?
No.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy? Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
No.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina?
No.
Ms. Pritzio?
No.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
No.
Ayes 7, nays 6, with 2 members not present. The amendment fails.
Okay.
How does the amendment?
You said I
Does the language of council mandate a majority vote?
We're going to double check the roll.
I think it's a simple majority.
Members present and voted.
We're looking.
Approved by an affirmative vote of the majority of the members present of a committee to which an amendment is presented for discussions of, amended by an affirmative vote of the majority of the seated members when they're offered at the meeting of the full council.
Would you repeat that word, seated?
Okay. The rules of council provide that motions, ordinances, and resolutions may be amended by affirmative vote of the majority of the seated members of council when they are offered at a meeting of the full council.
So we have a plurality, so that's 7 to 6.
It's been approved.
been approved. Thank you. No, it says the majority of those, the language says the majority of those seated. There's 13 seated.
I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think he's right.
What?
The seated elected or?
That's what I'm questioning. See, I thought seated meant.
Seated is the seated 15.
No.
Hold on, let's get the solicitor comment.
Let me just have 1 minute here.
We're gonna just take a 5-minute recess so they can look into this.
And I like the county solicitor to be involved in that conversation as well. You can't? Okay. Don't try to horn swap.
So you need a majority of the seated members. Okay, let me look here. All right, yeah, I think she's right. Yeah. So it has to be a majority of the 15. All right, here. All right. I just read the,
Hey, can we, Mr. President?
We'll go back
Okay.
into session.
I had just read the provision on amendment, and it means a majority, affirmative vote of the majority of the seated members, which is the number of members we have elected to council. So we would have need a majority of the elected members. There's a distinction in the amendment provision that amendments approved by a majority of members present of a committee to which this amendment is presented. That is members present. For a general amendment, it has to be a majority of the council present.
Whoa. So what are you trying to tell me? That we got the majority vote. The amendment got the majority vote, and you're telling me you're rejecting it? You're attempting to reject it?
Yes, I'm telling you we're rejecting it because
I challenge the decision of the chair. If your decision is to accept the solicitor's position, I challenge the decision of the chair.
okay, that's my ruling. Okay,
And that's why we should fire him.
thank you.
That's out of order.
True.
At this point in time, based upon the solicitor's advice, I'm accepting the solicitor's advice, and if you wish, you appeal the ruling of the chair, so be it. Does anyone want to?
Does it need a second to appeal?
No.
I'll appeal it as well then.
So let's just do a simple roll call.
For what? Mr. President, for what purpose is your effort to generate a roll call vote?
To appeal the ruling of the chair.
You have to have a vote on the ruling to appeal the chair.
Yeah.
Well, if I remember correctly, and I'm no authority, but the only choice that is in front of us is you cede your seat to the next ranking officer, and then a vote is taken.
Paul, would you please conduct the vote?
Am I correct?
Can I have a point of personal privilege here? I just have a question. I'm just wondering what is up for debate? That seated, is the challenge that seated doesn't mean seated, it means present, even though the other provision about amending in committee clearly defines a difference between present and seated? So we have, and I think, are you quoting the county code is when we're talking about a majority of the seated members?
The rules of council.
The rules of council, right? So the rules of council talk about we need a majority of the seated members. Another provision talks about in committee, you need a majority of the present members. So we clearly see that there's two different terminologies that mean two different things. So are you challenging that there's a difference? I'm just trying to understand. My understanding, if there was a vacancy on council, there would be 14 seated members. That seated is different than present and different than voting members.
Can I also make a comment? Sure. We are having this argument over a non-binding motion of council. I just want to once again ground everyone in that. Yeah. But still, I just, it has been a proclamation-filled day. I want to make sure we're doing things correctly. I'm just once again grounding us in the fact that this is a non-binding motion of council, and there are bigger fish to fry. So, yeah, that's it. Just throwing it out there.
I mean, at this point, the chair's been, we need to take a vote. Someone needs to take the vote. Someone, Sam, would you authorize the vote? No.
No, you can yell that.
Councilman Palmieri, would you authorize the vote? To appeal the ruling of the chair.
Well, it's been moved and seconded, so it's on the floor.
If you vote yes, you overrule you.
If you're voting yes, you're overruling me.
Right.
You're saying that you think seated means present.
Yes. So can we do that? Did you hear that, Councilman Palmieri?
I heard that. I can't, there's everybody.
No, they're appealing his ruling, that the motion law.
Hold on. Hey, Mr. President, everybody's talking at one time. What the hell are we voting on?
Councilman Palmieri, we're basically voting on, DeWitt is saying, Councilman Walton is saying that I've accepted the ruling of our solicitor on the grounds that what he is saying, basically, it's seated members means all of council. And Councilman Walton is challenging that because I've accepted that as fact from our solicitor. So he's appealing the ruling on the chair to say I'm wrong and that we shouldn't do that. So that's what the vote needs to be on, that I'm wrong, and he's appealing that, obviously, because I've accepted the decision of the solicitor. Does that make sense?
Yes, well, so a yes vote means we're supporting the chair, and a no vote means we're supporting Mr. Walton.
Opposite.
The opposite.
A no vote means that you are accepting the ruling of the chair.
Yes.
A yes.
The no vote means it. Okay.
A yes vote, you're overruling the chair.
So would you call Jared, ask Jared to do that, take the roll?
Clarify again one more time for everyone, so everyone understands.
Go ahead. Keep clarifying.
You want to do it?
Yes. There's been a motion to overrule the chair's ruling, which accepted my ruling on whether the number needed for the amendment. If you vote in favor of that motion, you are voting to overrule the chair's ruling. And if you vote against it, you are supporting the chair's ruling.
And it's really,
Go ahead.
interpretation, the chair's interpretation.
Right.
It's a personal attack. It is the chair and the solicitor's interpretation as to what seated actually means.
Right.
Present or elected.
Okay, you move to a vote now.
No means you agree with the president and the solicitor. Yes means you don't. You're welcome.
Okay.
That's the reverse.
No, it's not.
No means no to overrule. It means you agree with the solicitor and the president. Yes means you disagree with the solicitor and the president, and you would like to overrule.
Sure.
All right, I think we're ready for a roll call.
Jared, or sorry, John, can you direct Jared?
That's not it.
You need to direct a roll call at this point.
You're directing the roll, direct him to take a roll call.
I'd take a roll call.
Thank you. On the motion to appeal the ruling of the chair, Ms. Bennett.
No.
Mr. Betkowski.
No.
Mr. DeMarco.
Yes.
Mr. Dewar.
Sure. Yeah.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis is not with us. Ms. Hallam.
No.
Mr. Klein.
No.
Mr. Macy is not with us. Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
No.
Mr. Palmieri.
No.
Mr. Paul Messina.
He's the chair.
He still gets a vote.
Yeah, but he gets
his
the vote
final vote.
He gets the final vote.
You get the vote?
No.
The vote.
Ms. Pritzio.
No.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
No.
Thank you. Ayes 4, noes 9, with 2 members absent. The motion to appeal fails.
Moving on. So at this point in time, I also have an amendment to offer. It's actually Katina 1. Can we pass that out?
I would not believe what happens here if they didn't watch. Thank you.
And even then, they wouldn't believe it.
And even then, they wouldn't believe it.
You know I'm doing that.
So I'd obviously like to introduce Amendment 1. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Obviously, I'll give everyone a chance to read it so we can have discussion.
Yes, yes, on maybe the second reading.
What?
Yes, on maybe the second reading. No.
No on the bill, yes.
Okay, I believe everyone's had an opportunity to read it. Is there any discussion at this point in time? Just before I entertain discussion, actually, I tried to basically make this, I knew there were going to be possibly competing amendments at some point, so I tried to take pieces of Councilman Walton's amendments and pieces of other amendments that might have been out there and try to mesh them into one bill and try to basically have a representation from both sides. It just makes them it adds six non-voting members to the board, but it basically keeps Councilman Walton's intact, and then, like I said, the other ones. And then the whereas clauses are still in there, and like Councilman Dewar said, I mean, this is a non-binding resolution, so I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on this. So any questions or concerns? Okay, in this hearing none. I think it was made and seconded already, so go ahead and take the roll.
On the motion to adopt Amendment Katina 1, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
Mr. Betkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco. No. Mr. Dewar.
No.
Ms. Filiaggi.
No.
Mr. Fatulis is not with us. Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy? He's not with us. Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio? Mr. Walton?
No.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 9, noes 4 with 2 members absent. Amendment Katina 1 is adopted.
Now you have to
Okay, so now we'll have a final vote on the bill. So at this point in time, would someone like to make a final vote on the bill as amended?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Go ahead, Jared, please take the roll. Or is there any discussion, I should say? Seeing none, Jared, please take the roll.
On the motion to approve the bill as amended, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Betkowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco? Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis is not with us. Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy? Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio? Mr. Walton?
No.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 12, noes 2, with 2 members not present. The bill passes.
Thank you. Now we'll now move on to liaison reports. Any liaison reports this evening? Seeing none. New business ordinances and resolutions. 12626-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Article 1013 of the Administrative Code of Allegheny County entitled Political Activity, Accountability, Conduct, and Ethics Code, Section 5-1013.09G, entitled Patronage and Nepotism, in order to alter the provisions relating to county employment, sponsored by Councilmember Fatulis.
Mr. President,
Councilman Dewar.
I would like to make a motion to waive the second reading and vote on this ordinance tonight.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, can I explain my rationale?
Yes.
So this bill does something, it's very easy explanation. So the nepotism clause in the county administrative code currently states that no family member of a county official or county officer shall be permitted to obtain full-time employment with the county or agency except through the election of public office. This ordinance removes that clause. So it would make it easier, in fact, possible for sitting elected officials to directly hire family members into not just county government, but the departments that they are overseeing in a time where we're talking quite a bit about county ethics and the hiring on certain boards and things. This is moving backwards, not forwards on this topic. I don't know, Councilman Fatulis is not here to discuss this, but I believe this is a gross misuse of our time, given especially that this is likely going to government reform, and that is already backed up as enough as it is, that we should take a vote on this tonight, and hopefully I would urge my colleagues to vote against making this, in what would be my opinion, a rather unethical misstep in making it easier for undue influence to enter our county government. So, thank you. So, and if you agree on that you'd like to vote on this tonight, I hope you vote yes on waiving the second reading, so yes on the first vote, and second, once we vote on the bill itself, no on the actual bill.
Councilman Betkowski?
It's just kind of even though I support much of Councilman's comments, I do believe that we should use regular order for our business unless there is a true urgency to the matter. And I would suspect that after vigorous discussion in the Government Reform Committee, that the concerns that the councilman has mentioned, which I share, and I'm sure many of my colleagues share, can be addressed in the ordinary order of business.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hearing no other discussion, Jared, please take roll.
On the motion to waive the second reading, Ms. Bennett?
Yes.
Mr. Betkowski?
No.
Mr. DeMarco?
Yes.
Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Mr. Fatulis is not with us. Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Macy? Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Paul Messina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio?
Yes.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 12, no 0, with 2 members not present. The motion to waive the second reading passes.
There was one no.
There's one no.
Councilman Betkowski.
I apologize, Councilman Betkowski. Cannot count any.
Okay, now to proceed on the main bill.
Somebody has to move it. Somebody has to move its adoption.
Oh.
Palm?
Yeah, I'll move to bring this up to the floor for discussion.
Second.
Vote.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Now, somebody has to move to approve, to
Yeah, I'll make a
move
motion.
to pass the ordinance.
I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance.
All right, and then we need a second.
Councilman Klein seconded that motion.
We get second? All right.
The motion has been made and seconded.
Okay.
Is there any discussion? Go ahead, Jared.
On the motion to approve the bill, Ms. Bennett,
No.
Mr. Bekowski,
No.
Mr. DeMarco, Mr. Dewar,
No.
Ms. Filiaggi, Ms. Hallam,
No.
Mr. Klein,
No.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus,
No.
Mr. Palmieri,
No.
Mr. Palmasina,
No.
Ms. Pritzio, Mr. Walton, President Katina.
No.
Ayes 0, noes 13, with 2 members absent. The bill fails.
12628-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Section 5-10007 of the Administrative Code of the Allegheny County Code of Ordinances entitled Residency.
That will
Sponsored
go
by
to
the
government reform. 12629-23.
An ordinance of the Council of the County of Allegheny ratifying an amendment that revises Section 2105.73 Municipal Solid Waste Landfills of the Allegheny County Health Department Rules and Regulations, Article 21, Air Pollution Control, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Health and Human Services. 12630-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the continued use of a BMX bicycle facility in the county South Park by South Park BMX Incorporated, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to Parks. 12631-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the continued use of real property in the county's Deer Lakes Park for purposes of farming by Beacom Farms, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
That will go to the Committee on Parks. 12632-23.
An ordinance of the County of Allegheny, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, authorizing the continued use of real property in the county's White Oak Park, known as Angora Gardens, by UPMC Western Behavioral Health at Mon-Yough, sponsored by the Chief Executive.
And that will go to the Committee on Parks. We now have new business motions. 12633-23.
A motion of the Council of Allegheny County urging the United States Environmental Protection Agency to revise its standard for annual average fine particulate matter exposure from 12 micrograms per cubic meter to 9 to 10 micrograms per cubic meter, sponsored by Councilmembers Klein and Pritzio.
I believe that Mr. Klein would like to vote on the motion tonight, and he would also like to offer an amendment before the final vote, so it's going to be a little bit complicated. So we'll have to do this in 2 steps. First, we'll need a motion to approve the bill and a second, which will then open discussion. Then we'll need a motion to waive the rule of council requiring advance notice of the amendments. If the rule waiver passes, then we'll be able to proceed with a motion to amend. So at this point, Mr. Klein, would you like to make the motion to approve?
Yes, I would like to make the motion to approve at this time.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Here.
Am I able to co-sponsor that? Or is that just for the chairs of the committees?
You can do that. You can go.
Okay.
You can go on.
I'd like to join in as a co-sponsor.
I would as well, please.
Same.
Jack?
Me too.
Me too.
Well, why not?
Okay. So motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, go, and since no discussion, go ahead.
I apologize. That was the motion to approve the parent bill. I believe Mr. Klein would like to make a motion to waive the 48-hour rule for his amendment at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Second that motion to waive the
Yes, I'd like to
40-hour
waive
rule
the
for Paul's
48-hour
amendment.
rule. Yes.
Paul, do you want to explain the amendment?
Yeah, so let me talk for a moment about the amendment itself. So the Environmental Protection Agency is considering a proposed rule change as per the Administrative Procedures Act, which is a federal law. And what the EPA is proposing is a new standard, and the title of the matter that they're considering is a reconsideration of the National Ambient Air Quality Standards for Particulate Matter. So the original bill was introduced, and the standard in that original bill was more stringent than the standard that has been in place for the last 11 years. This is a standard that was introduced in 2012, and there has been no updating or revisions on that during that period of time. So normally, we might find that if a standard is established 11 years ago, at some time during that period of time, maybe 4, 5, 6 years later, the EPA would have revisited it again and made additional adjustments. But during the Trump administration, the work of the EPA was in no small measure deprioritized. And so as a result, a change that probably would have been recommended by the EPA in 2017, 2018 was not recommended. So here we are 11 years later with no change at all. So what is being introduced by way of an amendment is an attempt to adhere to a more stringent standard still that probably brings us to where we would have been today had attention been paid to this by the EPA during that period of time between 2017 and 2018. Okay? So tonight, I'm introducing an amendment that would, again, adhere to a more stringent standard. And all we're really asking for here is this. We're simply introducing a motion urging the Environmental Protection Agency to adopt this standard. It is something that we are urging. It is not something that we can require. The agency will receive many comments, hundreds, thousands of comments during the comment period. But we want to make sure that we get this in before the comment period ends, which is on March the 28th. Since council will not meet between now and March 28th, there is some sense of urgency in making our voice heard as a council and in recommending that council, validate this evening.
Thank you. Rather than, we jumped a little bit ahead of ourselves, and rather than interrupt you, Councilor Klein, we still need to go back. I mean, that was your comment, that obviously is your comment on the amendment, but we still need to take a vote on the waiving the 48-hour rule.
Yes.
And the second. So I believe we've made the motion and seconded that.
Okay.
But we just need to physically take the vote.
Okay.
So, Jared?
On the motion to waive the 48-hour rule, Ms. Bennett is not here. Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco? No. Mr. Dewar?
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi?
Yes.
Ms. Hallam?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus?
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri?
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina?
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio?
Yes.
Mr. Walton?
Yes.
President Katina?
Yes.
Ayes 11, noes 1, with 3 members not present.
The amendment's coming around, and you'll have a chance to read it. If Paul has anything, or Councilman McClean has anything else to add, he can add it. And then we'll have any further discussion. So take a moment to read the amendment.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah, pretty much reflects. I mean, yeah, yeah. I would add this in terms of the work that's done by the EPA in reviewing comments that are made during the notice and comment period of time. I mean, the EPA doesn't make decisions to adopt a rule or, modify a rule based upon, kind of taking an overall vote. What they're looking for is thoughtful insights that they might look at in order to, justify or validate the change that they are proposing. And so what we're advancing here tonight is a sense of the county council in this region, a region that has been dealing with a number of these air quality challenges. And so what we're doing is trying to provide some perspective in the amendment itself, and I think that it's laid out pretty well here.
Is there any further discussion at this point in time?
I have a question.
Councilman DeMarco.
Yeah. Looking at this, I wonder what study or analysis has been done to determine by lowering the standard to 8 micrograms, what that would do, how that would affect business here or jobs.
Yeah.
Because we're going to 8, right? I mean, is that even scientifically possible? When the President Obama passed his Clean Air Act,
right?
There was industry out there talking about that technology didn't exist
right.
at that time to be able to clean the air. scrubbers on some of these facilities here to that standard. So I understand that this doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it's a move.
You know, but at the same time, I think we should be responsible in the things that we're pushing. So how does this affect industry? I mean, at 8 micrograms, if they took and they enacted that, what does that mean?
Life would go on.
Companies like U.S. Steel, because like inversions, life always does, doesn't it?
Yeah, no,
and as you heard the county executive say, air pollution is down 80% here in the last 12 years.
Right.
You know, so you're absolutely right. Life does go on, but we still should not be a joke. And be just passing things so we can say. Because if 8's good, Paul. If that's the why not 1?
Yeah, I mean, the EPA is contemplating a standard this is a national standard. It's not a standard for just the Mon Valley, not a standard
No, I
for just
understand,
the
but they're
state of
looking at 9 and 10, and you're talking 8.
Well, hold on. Can you hold on, Councilman? Let him respond, and then you.
and I would also say that in terms of visiting that standard, a lot of the concerns that we have had about the health of our environment are not improving. And so I think that given that reality and given the fact that the EPA has not revisited this for 11 years, this really seems to be something of a modest proposal in terms of, you know, what we are asking industry and others to do in order to comply with it. So, I mean, what will the implications be? Well, I guess we have to think about it in the larger context in terms of the health of our communities, the health of this region. You know, obviously, organizations, businesses, you know, will adapt to these kinds of changes or standards, and they'll be helped by the technology, if they choose to invest in it, that will make it possible for them to adhere to this newer standard. But once again, this is a motion. The EPA obviously has to decide for themselves whether or not this is something that they will choose to adopt.
Anything further?
Yeah, well, you're assuming that the technology exists to be able to meet that standard. And then, you know, one of the things that we heard today when we talked about the watch and the warning down in the Mon Valley was the result of an inversion.
Right.
Okay? Those are things that we can't control. They're outside our control. Okay? So, you know, again, it doesn't mean anything. I just like to think that if we're going to pass, and it's a motion asking someone to go somewhere, that we have done the necessary research to understand what the effect would be
well,
on business and jobs.
In fact,
and U.S. Steel is not, it's not a minor employer in this region with the 3,000 direct jobs it represents and the 10 to 12,000 ancillary jobs to support that operation.
Right. I think that the episodic rule that that the administration championed was an attempt to, in some way, address these situations and require that industry adjust their production standards accordingly. So it's not as though the episodic rule is, you know, indifferent to those considerations. I mean, there are reasonable concerns that that isn't enough. There's more that needs to be done. But nonetheless, I think that in introducing that, what we're talking about is, all right, so what do companies, organizations, these 16 companies in this region have to do in order to, you know, minimize the possibility that we will have these inversions that will produce these high particulate matter days? So, I mean, if we're going to address this in a meaningful way, and, you know, the world, the environment that we live in is changing, and it's not changing slowly, then we're going to have to make some decisions. And in many respects, this, to me, seems like probably a fairly modest proposal, given the amount of time that has passed between the last time they looked at it and today.
Councilman, anything further? Okay. Councilman Filiaggi.
Well, thanks. Filiaggi, for anyone else who wants to pronounce it correctly. But thank you. I have to say that I do echo Councilman DeMarco's comments that why 8, why not 1? Some of these numbers, sufficient study hasn't been done on whether or not these are numbers that can even be reached. However, in light of what Councilman and Chair Klein has done and the work that he has done on this, and shed light on the fact that there has been no movement on this in the EPA, I think that most of us think that there should have been movement. And if this encouragement is what would help that movement, that I do support it. Not necessarily the number, but supporting sending up movement to a above us.
Yeah.
And then, if this brings us to some meaningful discussion and all the parties to the table, then yes, I'm in support. Thank you.
Councilman Hallam? Okay, I'll call you next.
Yeah, thank you, President Katina. I keep hearing this like 80% decrease in pollution number thrown around, and I'm just wondering what is the source of that, because it sounds very false and made up to me. And so I'm just wondering where the pollution in Allegheny County has decreased by 80% over the past 12 years, like where in the world that number came from.
Well, it came from the county executive standing here before you tonight, and I've seen studies here that I'll be happy to forward you tomorrow.
Please
as
do
early as
that.
tomorrow. So the pollution here, the air in Allegheny County is drastically different and better than it was a
80%.
decade ago.
Let's not talk over
So
one another.
So I'll send you the study.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councilman Walton?
May I speak after?
That's not going to change the dynamics. Let's move.
Councilwoman Nakaradi Chapkus.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, to thank my colleagues for taking a leadership role in this regard and providing public comment to EPA. I think that's a significant step. You know, the question was asked earlier, how will this protect or impact industry? And the other question that I ask is how will it impact public health, which is significant. Because we know that Allegheny County is in the top 1% cancer risk for air quality across the country. And so that is a significant statistic that has been shown by our academic community that exists. When we talked about inversions and that there's nothing that we can do with those inversions with the air quality, we can do something. We can lower the emissions, the pollutants that are happening and being emitted during those time periods of inversions, so that we know that when children are walking to school in the Mon Valley, when an inversion occurs, that they're not being impacted by this slew of pollutants that they're breathing in as they go to the doorstop to the school door. And you know, I think about young children in child care centers and other people, the elderly. You know, when those warnings happen, they talk about making certain that children of all ages, the elderly, those with respiratory and cardiac disease, stay indoors. And we know that that's an impossible thing to do when children have to go to school, when people have to go to work. And so for that, and the science is there. EPA has well over 1,000 scientists, and that's how they get to these numbers. And so to say that the science isn't there is not accurate. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone, Councilman DeMarco?
So if the health ramifications are so terrible with the air quality as it is today, are you telling me that 8 micrograms is going to take and solve all of those problems? That if we reach 8, I mean, where's the science that says if we reach 8, that none of this is going to happen or occur? That these kids that you're talking about that are going to school or they're in these pre-K programs are going to be breathing clean air or not being suffering from asthma or things like that, you know? Again, this gets back to the, is it 8 or is it 1? Right? Yeah. You know what I mean? So
I think that bodies of our nature, when we're trying to set these standards or encourage these kinds of adjustments, I mean, we're coming to terms with the fact that sometimes change is incremental. And so we're trying to do something to move the needle in that regard. Will we have to recommend, or will the EPA have to recommend moving the needle again, maybe in the not too distant future? I have no doubt that they will. But this is where we are tonight, and that is what our effort is here in encouraging to adopt this, you know, lower, more stringent standard.
Anyone else this evening? I would just like to say that I agree with Councilwoman Falaji. I'm not sure what the exact number is, obviously, but we need to do better, and we obviously, if this does anything to move the discussion or drive the discussion forwards, I think it's in our responsibility to do that. So, Jared, please take roll.
Actually, on the amendment, I do not have a motion or second recorded at this point.
I made the motion on the amendment. Paul seconded it.
Paul seconded.
Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification. On the motion to adopt Amendment Klein 1, Mr. Bekowski?
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco?
I'm going to abstain because everyone's for clean air and clean water and things like that, but I haven't seen any information because they tell me
Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzia.
Yes.
Mr. Walton.
Yes.
President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 11, 1 abstention, and 3 members not present. The amendment is adopted.
Jared, can you please add me to the bill as amended as a co-sponsor, please? Thank you.
So with the amendment now disposed of, we can now vote on the bill. We already have a motion for approval in a second, so we'll do a roll call.
That's on the motion to approve Bill number 12633-22 as amended. Mr. Betkowski.
Yes.
Mr. DeMarco. Mr. Dewar.
Yes.
Ms. Filiaggi.
Yes.
Ms. Hallam.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Mr. Macy, not with us. Ms. Nacarati Chapkus.
Yes.
Mr. Palmieri.
Yes.
Mr. Palmasina.
Yes.
Ms. Pritzio. Mr. Walton. President Katina.
Yes.
Ayes 11, 1 abstention, and 3 members not present. The bill is amended passes.
Notification of contract.
We have none.
Any public comment on general items?
We have several. First up is Michael Delastrito.
Not here.
Or not.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait, there are more.
Oh,
Next would be
I didn't
Lance
see
Miller.
that.
Not the other page.
Yeah. Robert Mills. Jacob Poole.
He's here.
Excellent. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jacob Poole. Thanks for letting me speak. And I'm here to speak on human trafficking, labor, and slavery, and those kind of things in Allegheny County, Westmoreland County, and this general area. And I want to speak on those topics because, well, I'm here, and that's my story. Because Pittsburgh has all the Carnegie Mellon and National Energy Lab and Westinghouse and all these great places where brain power is useful. People wanted to get more of that, so they financed targeting my Jewish family in Europe, in Hungarian, German, France, and Poland, Czechoslovakia, and that area, and Romania, to get more smart people here. So when I was in European police custody, when I was 10 years old, they were investigating the manufacture of children for sale for money. And I am one of those children. I was literally manufactured from abducted people in Europe during the civil wars of the Czechoslovakian wars, the Romanian breakup, the Berlin Wall Civil War. People financed human trafficking rings. And human trafficking rings, there are no extra kids, so people abduct people and make them. By rape, abductions, whatever, anything imaginable. So I'm here because of that. I have a PhD from Pitt. I have discoveries from the National Energy Lab. Yet I go to the homeless shelter for Christmas, and I watch people grow old, have families, have kids, and I'll never have those things because I never had a mom, never had a dad. I was raised by people connecting me with things they would do with performance athletes. You know, like when I was in high school at Allegheny Valley, instead of going home for Christmas, I went to a family who had connections to Carnegie Mellon and the National Energy Lab, their house for Christmas, so they could be influencing me to be a really good scientist. And that's my story. I'm here with PhDs and things like that, and I'm walking the streets handing out human trafficking awareness flyers because I'm watching people get old. Watching people have families and kids. And I was held captive, in isolation. I have medical issues. I'm banned from hospitals and things because I go there and ask for help from human trafficking related stuff. And there's no help. Human trafficking is so deeply ingrained in this area that people actually walking up to me and trying to deport me. I currently have USCIS things that I was given citizenship is being taken away from me, and all these complicated stuff. And I'm going to the European Union and saying, guess what? Welcome me back because I'm in the process of being deported back to the European Union after I was human trafficked for exploitation. So they're waiting for me to come back and probably file international civil rights suits in European courts. Thank you.
Thank you.
They signed
Next.
via live application. Next up is Lynn Thompson.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lynn Thompson. It's actually Lynn Thompson McKinley. What we're doing is we are starting a new organization. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. It's called Fighting Back. And what Fighting Back is we're going to help change the criminal justice system. And when I say change the criminal justice system, I mean by taking on the things that are important. We're working on a bill, or I guess you want to say a motion, that we're going to try to help decrease restitution payments from people that have been on probation from the year of 1983, and they're still on probation, and they keep getting extended and extended and extended, and the courts have become a collection agency. Well, we're going to extend that. We're going to stop it. We want to make sure that anybody that has been on probation from the year of 1983 all the way through the present, we're going to try and get that forgiven. Because why are we a collection agency as a courthouse? We have things that they're supposedly waiting on JRS that are filling our jails, and they're not doing anything, and they're not taking people out. So Fighting Back, we're getting real involved, and we're going to be filing lawsuits. We're going to be doing everything. There's people that are working with us, and there's attorneys and judges and whatever. So hopefully we can get this criminal justice system changed. And that's our goal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
The next speaker is Akana Halmakina, who I believe is not here tonight.
She is not.
Thank you. And last up would be Brian Fender.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, motion carries. Have a nice night, everyone.